Good evening, guys. How you guys doing? My name is Emmanuel DZ Mupese, sports journalist for my network Stat TV show. I have a special guest, five-time NBA All-Star, two-time Defensive Player of the Year, All-NBA first team, All-NBA second team, one of the greatest basketball players in NBA history, has been elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2019, Mr. Sidney Moncrief. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. I was starting to look around and see who you were talking about. You started all those accolades. I'm like, who's he talking about? But Emmanuel, it's great to be here today.
Thank you so much, man. I'm talking about you because there's so many history about you. Like, you've been around the game for so long, and you've seen the game, you see the players evolving years after years.
Welcoming Sidney to the Hall of Fame are Don Nelson and Bob Lanier. Ladies and gentlemen, Sidney Moncrief.
You know, every single player has a player they look up to. They had a post on the wall. I know like LeBron James, the guy he look up to is Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant, same thing with Michael Jordan. Magic Johnson, he said it was Oscar Robertson. Who is the guy that you look up to as a young kid in high school?
In high school, there were two players. One was, I had a jersey and I had cut it up in strips. And on the back, it had Dr. S. So who would you guess that I looked up to? One was Dr. J. Oh. And the second one was David Thompson, because David Thompson was 6'4". He could leap. He was very competitive, very skilled basketball player. And so those were the two. I didn't have posters, couldn't afford posters, but those were the two players that I looked up to. I really watched the Boston Celtics a lot when I was 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And I looked up to their team, the way they played team basketball, Bill Russell and all those great players, JoJo White, Sam Jones, you just name it. Don Nelson, who later coached me. I love to watch them play, and it seems like we got them every Sunday. That's who we saw play most of the time. I was a big Boston Celtic fan growing up as a young person.
That's great to hear this news. And what did you took from their game, especially from David Thompson, who played at North Carolina State, and Dr. J, who played at University of Massachusetts?
I think it was more the flair of how they played. I became a better leaper. I think I was explosive this way, but I became a better leaper. And just the way David Thompson played above the rim was inspiring to me for someone 6'4". They would throw that UCLA cut where he would cut off the top and they would throw it on these alley oops. And back then you couldn't dunk. So he would just take the ball over the rim, just drop it in, like looking at the rim, dropping it down. And of course, Dr. J just played with such a flair. Highlights that we see now of him in the NBA, and people seeing the highlights of him in the ABA, they would pale in comparison to what we see with him in the NBA. I watched him play for years and was a big fan of Dr. J's also.
Damn, bro. So many memories about Dr. J's, though, because I remember one time when I got introduced to Dr. J was actually I went to a basketball camp, and everybody was talking about Dr. J, Dr. J. So I look at the highlights with his big afro, big hands, palming the ball, jumping the free throw line, and that stuck to my mind even until this day, though.
Oh, yeah, just so explosive, and just the grace in which he played the game, and also the grace, toughness that he competed. He didn't draw attention to himself, neither did David Thompson. They just went out there and did their thing, made great, spectacular plays, night in, night out, and it's what they expected to do.
Exactly.
They didn't celebrate it because, hey, that's why you pay me the big bucks. This is how I ball. And that's why I could really appreciate about those players during that time frame.
That's great. So fast forward, you went to University of Arkansas. You played with Ron Brewer and a couple of great players around that program. During your 4 years, you guys revamped the program in University of Arkansas for the Razorback. Talk to me about that experience.
Oh, that was a very good experience. Marvin Deff, Ron Brewer, we had Jimmy Counts, Steve Hall, U.S. Reed, Ray Buckner, Darryl. So we had just some really good hard-nosed players, and they were just so smart, and they were so driven to play as a team. And when you look at Marvin, Ron, myself, Jimmy, Steve, we all came from championship programs in high school or near championships. We didn't win a championship, but we were runner-ups for championships. So we had this way of knowing how to win and to start off as freshmen, which you don't see a lot nowadays, and play 1, 2, 3 years together because they were 1 year ahead of me, and watched our development, confidence through Coach Eddie Sutton, Coach Pat Foster, Gene Cady, had some great assistant coaches, and they just watched us get better and better and never gave us too much prompts just to make sure we kept getting better.
Yeah.
But you could tell that they trusted how we played the game of basketball. And we took the program along with other players and the fans. We took it from where it was, which was not at the bottom of the barrel. We had Martin Terry, Dean Towson, some really good players at Arkansas, even before me. I watched them play. So I had a lot of respect for those players also. But then when we came, it was just like, okay, you got 3 great players. You got players that complement them. And we knew how to win games, and we were accustomed to winning. And we didn't take anything but winning. That's what we were going to do. We were going to win basketball games. That's fun when you're in that kind of environment. You have a coach like Coach Sutton that pushes you. And then we had the fans that it was new for them. Basketball, they're football state.
Yeah.
But basketball was something that they really got excited about and got behind the team.
And that's great because you see that brotherhood that you had in Arkansas for the 4 years you had over there. It bring it built that momentum. Like every year you wanted to get better, not only in grades in school, but also as well as a basketball player. That you guys communicate together, you guys take breakfast together, eat together, practice together.
It's nothing like college for building camaraderie and building your team and building long-term relationships. I just spoke to Marvin today, spoke to Jimmy today.
Wow.
30, 40 years ago. And we still communicate when we're together. It's like we never left one another. College can do that. NBA doesn't do that as well back then as it does now, because now you have players that you play AAU basketball with, and you develop those relationships through AAU, and you keep those going. And so when you get to the NBA, you already know those players. It was totally different with us. It was just a really nice experience, and something I wish every player could experience also.
That's great. You were actually, after your 4 years you played in Arkansas, in 1979, you're part of one of the greatest draft class of all time, in my opinion. One of the greatest, with Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and you were selected 5th overall by the Milwaukee Bucks. What was your initial reaction when you heard your name be selected in that draft? And how did you react? How did your family react?
Well, I reacted. It's not like it is now, where everybody knows you're going to be a baller, you're going to make a lot of money. It was kind of secondary. The first thing I did was I went to the encyclopedia. You didn't have, okay, Google, hello, Siri. So I went to the 10-year-old encyclopedia and looked up Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because I wanted to know a little bit about where's Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I saw on the lake and it's cold. You know, I was like, okay, all right, so I can deal with that. And then I looked up their industrial base, where they're kind of, it's north of Chicago, and it's of course on, which meant that a lot of the companies use Milwaukee as a place that they sub out contract work for automobiles, to casting, die casting, and all those types. Those are an industrial town. They had automotive factories, and they have A.O. Smith with the frames. They had Schlitz beer, and they had Budweiser and Miller, and they had Budweiser. They had Miller beer and those type of places. So it was a hard-working, blue-collar town that loved their sports and loved people that played hard and gave the fans what they came to see. So we fit perfectly because of the personality of Milwaukee and Wisconsin, and my personality.
That's great though. And at that time too, is like, I remember one time Jerry West even said it, that if he had to pick the person as a #1 draft pick, it will be you instead of Magic Johnson. Were you flattered by those comments?
No, because I knew he wanted Magic, which makes sense. To be in the same conversation with a Magic Johnson is certainly an honor. my ego is not to the point where I would say, "Oh, he made a mistake." He was very wise to pick Magic because Magic was a generational, once in a generation type player. He was generational talent, and he had personality. Not only had the personality, he had the pedigree of winning. He won at Michigan State and as a freshman. So just to be mentioned with Magic is always a good thing.
That's great though, and after that, once you got established yourself with the Milwaukee Bucks with Marquise Johnson, the great Bob Lanier, one of the greatest big men ever, coached by the great Donnie Nelson. What was it like being in Milwaukee, competing against the 76ers with Moses Malone, Dr. J, Bobby Jones, and the Celtics and Eastern Conference, the greatest of all time?
That was like one of the greatest teams in the history.
Yeah.
NBA, and you didn't realize that when you were playing against them, but time has a way of revealing the real deal. And we had Junior Bridgman, Harvey Catchings, Quinn Buckner. They taught me what it meant to be a pro early at Milwaukee because of the example they set as professionals and how they approached the game of basketball, how they prepared in the summertime, how they protected their teammates. It was a good environment to come into. And then we had talented players. Of course, most of the players on that team had won national championships or had been to the Final Four. Same thing. Marcus, we had Richard Washington, Walt Walton, Ernie Grunfeld, Junior Bridgman, Bob Lanier. The list goes on and on. All those players had played at a level in college that was a winning level. And that made a huge difference in how we played it with Milwaukee. And then Don Nelson had the foresight with John Killalay, the late John Killalay, and some great assistant coaches, Mike Schuler and Greg Majerus, and some great Dale Harris, great assistant coaches that they helped put it all together.
Did you feel at that time in the 80s that you felt that you guys were actually close to winning the championship?
I did. I really did. I felt that way until 30 years later. You look at the other rosters, he's like, oh my goodness, they have 7 Hall of Fame players. You know,
Man,
they have 6 Hall of Fame players. And you don't, when you're competing, you don't really see that. You're too young. You're just out there trying to make it happen and trying to win. But the reality is, typically, best players win.
Yeah.
And you have more best players than the other team, you're going to more than likely win because all the coaching with Coach Cunningham and K.C. Jones, the coaches were stellar.
Yeah.
Pat Riley. So it wasn't like one coach was going to outcoach the other coach. It was like these 7 or 8 players are going to outplay these 7 or 8 players. We were just not quite talented enough to get over that hump.
Yeah. And you, as an individual player, you have accumulated so many accolades. 5-time being an All-Star, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. You've been an All-NBA first and second team. Is there any one thing that you wish you look back at your career like, damn, I wish I could have won one thing that could solidify my resume, or are you just happy where you are right now?
No, I don't really look back like that with any regrets. No, because I know throughout the years we competed well, and we just didn't have enough horses at the right time and to do what we wanted to do. No, I really can't. I love playing in Milwaukee. I can't say, oh, I wish I would have played for this team. Oh, I wish I would have played for this player. No, we are sum total of all our experiences. I wouldn't be who I am today without the experiences I had in Milwaukee. Had I had them in LA or Chicago or New York, it would have changed the core of who I am now. And I like who I am now. So I'm glad I had those experiences. I had them without regret.
That's great to hear this, because a lot of players, when they look back at the career, they always say, man, I wish I could play with that player. Man, I wish I could have left. I could have stayed in that team and not play with the other player. It's always vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point? Basically, as people say, it is what it is. But my is what it is is because I enjoyed my journey. I enjoyed it, and I don't have any regrets about who I played with or what era. Some people say, don't you wish you would play in the now? I said, no. Why would I want to play now? I was happy playing whenever I played. That's how I live my life. I live it right. I live it in the now. Live it with mindfulness. Right now is what's really important.
So you play against the best of the best. play against Michael, play against Dr. J, play against Manny Johnson, play against
Larry Bird. Larry Bird.
Oh, one of the greatest small forward of all time. My apology.
Right. That's okay.
Michael Ray Richardson, Clyde Drexler, Dominic Wilkins. Of all those wing guys, who was the toughest guy to ever guard you? Like, damn, I have to get ready
to guard me. Well, you still have Dennis Rodman, probably Michael Cooper, Dennis Rodman, Joe Dumars. Those were really, and Michael Jordan. Those were probably top 4 or 5 defensive players in the history of the game of basketball. Wow. Dennis Rodman being maybe the best, only because he could defend 5 positions and do it very well. And he could defend a guard. You could put Dennis Rodman on point guard, and he would make it difficult. Put him on center, and Michael Jordan would be right there because he could not only score 30, he could shut the best player down.
Yeah,
that's why, to me, the argument of the greatest player ever always ends up with Kareem or Michael. Same with Kareem. Kareem was a defender. He was a passer. He wasn't just a scorer. Michael was a defender. He was Defensive Player of the Year once or twice in all NBA defense, multiple times, for good reason. He took pride in how he defended people. And Joe Dumars and Dennis Johnson, I can keep going this list. Joe Dumars and Dennis Johnson, they used their body strength and their savvy to be very good defensive players.
That's great, though. And people forget that defense is the most important thing in basketball. Like, yeah, you can actually have a good offense too, but once you have a good defense, there's a good chance to win a championship.
And then when you gauge great players, if you want to say this guy's the greatest player ever, then you have to put defense in the equation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you should just say he's the greatest offensive player only. I can accept that, but don't say someone's the greatest player ever when they didn't really put the same effort on the offensive end and the defensive end, because last time I checked, they both were very important to the game of basketball.
Absolutely. So in 2019, you were seeing big news. You've been selected to the Basketball Hall of Fame, something that people wish they could actually get in there even until this day. When you heard that news, Sidney Moncrief, a letter or a phone call that you've been selected into the Hall of Fame, how did you feel emotionally and physically?
Yeah, I was like, cool.
Really?
Because I never played the game of basketball to be in the Hall of Fame. Matter of fact, when I missed being in the Hall of Fame a couple of times, I wasn't obsessed with being in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
I had forgotten about the Hall of Fame, and a lot of players went in before me that I didn't know they had gone in, because I wasn't every year picking up and see, did I make it this year?
Okay.
I wasn't in that mindset. Life was full of other things. But when I made the Hall of Fame, it was a relief, because I was tired of people asking me if I was in the Hall of Fame or not. So now or they'll say, why aren't you in the Hall of Fame? I didn't have a good answer for them.
Yeah.
Now they can't really ask me that question. But beyond that, it was a sigh of relief, but I wasn't obsessed with it. So I wasn't elated. It was just, oh, cool. That's nice. And you don't really hear people say, well, you should be this, you should be that. Why aren't you? I didn't really buy into that very much, to the point where it made me angry. I didn't buy into it. I would just listen to people say, yeah, maybe. But I didn't go back and look at stats, look at game tapes. Oh, yeah, they're right. I should look at that move I just made. Oh, look at that play. Yeah, I should be in there. They shouldn't be in there. That was not the way I handled it. I was just grateful and blessed to be part of that elite group of basketball players and executives, women, men, women, and coaches.
Before we continue the interview, we have to cut it off, because the time frame is less than a minute. So we're going to cut off, and I'm asking one more question before we wrap up the interview. So we're back live with the great Mr. Sidney Moncrief, NBA legend, 5-time All-Star, one of the greatest basketball players ever. Also, I have 2 other questions before we wrap it up. One question is, you have your foundation, if I'm not mistaken, called Game Changer, am I mistaken?
Yes, we have a 501c3,
Yeah.
a nonprofit organization called Moncrief Game Changer.
Game changer.
Yes.
And can you elaborate exactly on that? What is it? It's
Yeah. Matter of fact, we're in Springdale, Arkansas right now, which is close to Fayetteville. The Razorbacks are playing Troy as we speak. We're here doing a workshop with young people, and we try to emphasize, if you can just visualize that we want to create experiences, exposure, and engagement for college, high school, and younger students. That's the premise, and we do it in the area of entrepreneurship, workplace readiness, diverse equity inclusion. Those are the main things that we focus on in leadership with these young people. And we do it in the form of workshops and just creating, as I said, experiences. On December 9th, we have what we call 30 for 30, where we bring high school students or college students. We bring them to a location. We take 20 to 30 CEOs or leaders, put them in the same room. We have an engagement, conversation, roundtable rotations, have lunch, and then those CEOs or leaders, they take at least 2 or 3 of those students with them to their place of business for about 60 minutes to do a shadow, and then they bring them back. We're trying to create or raise the awareness for opportunities for our young people. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And we want to make sure we expose them to things that they don't know. I have a friend of mine that's he's over Camp Pfeiffer, which is funded somewhat by AmeriCorps. Most kids of color don't know anything about AmeriCorps.
No.
Right? Yeah. However, they provide a lot of resources for students that take on that responsibility, including helping them with college. We're going to expose these students on December 9th to AmeriCorps. We have a person coming that flies private aircrafts, and he introduced students to the aviation industry. We'll have them shadow him, where they're going to go in a plane ride. It's a little crop duster, but they're not going very far. Yeah. So they fly with someone, a person of color, and make them say, oh, I did not know this was a possibility. I didn't know all these opportunities existed within aviation beyond being on the baggage claim or being a ticket or airline attendant. So we're changing the game along with other people. We're not the only people out there changing the game, but we are changing the game for young people and for adults.
Now, you know what? When I hear things like that, positive news like that, it's great though, because not only you're actually a basketball player, but you always give back to the community where you come from. Like having CEOs coming into your foundation, exchanging ideas, networking, developing a great relationship, communication. In the long run, they're going to look back at 15, 20 years from now and say, you know what? I was actually having a conversation with the great Sidney Moncrief to his foundation, and we actually exchanged ideas about how we can become entrepreneurs and CEOs in the near future.
Yes, and the main premise behind everything we do, though, because you remember these are junior high school, and college kids, is to build their confidence, their communication skill, to build their character, build their consistency, and build their competence. 5 things we're trying to do through entrepreneurship or diverse inclusion. Leadership doesn't really matter. What we're finding through studies is if you can build a young person's confidence, that goes a long way into them succeeding long term. And we try to do that. We do it in a fun way. We have 3 workshops, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday here in this part of the state for a select group of students. And we're just having fun doing it. And our legacy is not what we leave from basketball, at least mine. That's part of the legacy you would like to leave. But the legacy ultimately that you want to leave is changing a life or impacting a life to where you're in a store like I was yesterday, and a young man comes up to me and says, "Hey, Coach Moncrief." I said, "Do I know you?" He said, "Well, not really, but I was in one of your workshops, and I graduated from college and now work for a company." And now we didn't do that ourselves. First of all, it took a village to make that happen.
Yeah.
Just to know that it happened and that he remembered. is what's really important to us, because that long-term impact is part of the legacy that I hope to build.
That's a great thing to leave on people's mind and legacy, so they can remember, like, you've been there before them, even though you're not close to them, but you leave an imprint for them so they
Yeah.
can understand in a long future, like how to become, like I said, entrepreneurs and build businesses over their area. The
Mhm.
Milwaukee Bucks, speaking of basketball again, one more question before I let you go. The Milwaukee Bucks, they're one of the best record in the NBA, led by Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak. You've been around the organization, you watched them, how they grow from the days when they won the championship 2 years ago. What will take them to get back to the promised land, to the NBA Finals again, to win it all?
Something really simple, and don't laugh at me when I say this.
Mm-hmm.
They have to stay healthy.
Okay.
I think any team that has a shot of winning the NBA title, you can't lose your key players and expect to win a title. For whatever reason, I don't care if they get suspended or they get injured, whatever. You have to have that core group intact doing that run to get to the playoffs. And then definitely once you get to the playoffs, I have no doubt that if Milwaukee is relatively healthy, they have to go through Boston and a couple other teams. But I feel that with Giannis and Middleton and some of those guys, they have a good shot at winning again this year if they stay healthy.
That's what's up, though. Mr. Moncrief, thank you so much for assisting to my interview.
Yes, no. Thank you for inviting me. I know took us a while to get together, but we finally got together.
We finally got it. No, honestly, I'm honored, honestly, because I wasn't expecting that to happen, but
Right.
my belief, my confidence, and faith of God made it happen. And thanks to you, like, I hope you stay healthy. I hope you're doing great. I hope your family's doing amazing.
Well, thank you. And then what I want to spread to people is your core values are important. If I can do something and I say I'm going to do it, I do it.
Yeah.
If I can't do something, I tell people I can't do it.
That's it.
So it's never where I say, hey man, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, call me this date, and then you call me and I forgot. Oh, call me this day. I never operate like that, and it served me well because beyond our credibility, what else do we have? Not much.
Not much.
Right.
Absolutely. So we'll stay in touch. We'll keep it in touch, sir. And your story's been legendary. And thank you for having me again. And have a wonderful evening, and God bless you, sir.
All right. It's Monday Night Football on the Razorback, so let's go. Thank you very much.
No problem. Have a nice evening. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching this interview. Make sure you subscribe on my page, on my YouTube channel page, Stat TV, and my Instagram page, Stat55. Have a great night.